So many of my insights and anecdotes come from the fact that I've lived with an ENTP roommate for about 4 years now. By nature, I'm very routined and habitual and stable. This makes me very appealing to EP types in general, especially ENTPs. So the lack of grounding that lead extroverted intuition and introverted sensing inferior causes can make ENTPs seem like agents of chaos or kites dancing in a hurricane. This leads me to a kind of theory I have on how you could seduce each personality type, and that is to appeal to their inferior function. For ENTPs, you can embody that sense of stability and consistency that they lack. For ESTPs and ESFPs, you can be like a North Star, providing them a long-term vision that they can strive for. For INTPs and ISTPs, you can simply listen to them and let them advise you without shutting down their often unconventional insights. So, when we were signing the contract for the flat that we currently live in, me and my ENTP friend were sort of dissecting the contract and negotiating with the letting agents. He was throwing out every single possibility that you can imagine, analysing each pathway and how it would affect us and how we could get out of it. Eventually, after his NE had generated the ideas and his TI had analysed everything, he finally said to me, "I'm ready to sign the contract, we should do it." So I went to sign the contract and I realised instantly that it was a contract for the wrong flat. That kind of obvious, glaring sensory detail can sometimes miraculously slip past ENTPs. This ENTP friend of mine also has a habit of losing very valuable objects, like his laptop. Whilst we were reminiscing about how hilarious the way he lost his original laptop was, he stopped in horror and said, "Where's my laptop?" It was on his lap. ENTPs have FI polar, and I've noticed that they are often reluctant to make value judgments. This is kind of a silly example, but it is quite informative. Whenever I'd ask this friend, who do you think the best footballer in the world is? Who do you think is the best prime minister? There's always a reluctance to give an answer that is purely based on individual preference or feeling. And since they can see so many perspectives and the validity of so many perspectives, they give very little weight to their own feelings and preferences on a matter. Another thing I've noticed about ENTPs is that they are exceptionally self-critical, and to an extent, if they're healthy, self-aware too. My friend will happily recount moments where, in his words, he's come up with a brilliant idea, or he did something brilliant in work today, and then, almost with the same level of enthusiasm, will say, "I made this huge blunder or miscalculation today," and will proceed to analyse both sides of that coin equally. The members of the intuitive thinking temperament, so the NTs, are often said to be, or accused of, living life like it's a game of chess. However, there are in fact many different styles of chess. The stereotypical impression of a chess master is that of a master calculator. If I move my pawn here, they take it with a bishop, I take with the rook, they take with the queen, I take with my queen, that kind of thing. This is known as tactical chess. This kind of precision when it comes to calculating is something I'd associate more with high introverted sensing users, who would, when arranging some event, want you to turn up at the precise location at the exact time. But there is another, more difficult to explain, and mysterious style of playing chess, and this is known as positional chess. I think that ENTPs have an intuitive grasp of this concept I'm about to explain, and they use it in almost every area of their life. The underlying principle of positional chess is that a piece has value depending on where it's positioned. Now that sounds kind of like an obvious thing to say, but if you don't play chess, you may not be aware of this fact. Every piece is given a rank at the start of the game. Pawns are worth 1, a bishop and knight are worth 3, the rook is worth 5, the queen is worth 8 or 9, depending on some systems. And they're given this rating because of the capability of the piece. If it can move to more squares than another piece, then it has a higher rating. But if you play chess at a high enough level, you will start to realise some interesting things happen. Pieces of a lower value, when positioned in the right place, can be more powerful than even the most powerful pieces on the board. So what defines a well-positioned piece? Maximum influence over the board, and maximum flexibility. I see ENTPs use this concept in daily life all of the time. Every plan they make, every decision they take, has adaptability and flexibility built into it. There's always a workaround, there's always a way out, there's always a back door. ENTPs never box themselves in, despite extroverted intuition's praise for being maybe the most ideational and creative function. I think it achieves this status not simply by the love and enjoyment of possibilities, but the hatred and even fear of limitations. It's for this reason that I believe ENTPs are the ultimate positional chess players of life, always maximizing their influence over the board, whilst never sacrificing the ability to adapt and be flexible. There's a famous story of Hernan Cortez, who set sail to Mexico with the completely insane aspiration of conquering an Aztec empire that was 500,000 strong, with only 500 of his own men. When he arrived there, he realised his men were interested in plundering and returning home as soon as possible, and had no desire to join him on what must have seemed to them like a suicide mission. So Cortez made what has now become an immortal decision. He decided, without the consent of his men, to burn the boats, leaving them completely stranded. The only hope they had of returning home and surviving was to fight, which they eventually did, and Cortez fulfilled his dream of conquering Mexico and the Aztec Empire. Cortez decided to put himself and his men in a position where they had no choice. There was no way out. Cortez probably wasn't an ENTP. And if he was an ENTP, he would have had his own boat stashed away somewhere that he could escape on anytime he wanted to. Fluidity and flexibility are the two hallmarks of the ENTP's approach to life. There's so much to say about all the personality types, but in particular the ENTP personality type. I've missed out so many stories and so many ideas regarding the cognitive functions. So treat this first series, where we go inside the mind of each personality type, as kind of like an introduction to my thoughts on each type.